I don't think so.
I think it might be, actually.
I hereby call to order this meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on September 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I am Linda Lukowski, Chair of the School Committee. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. A reminder that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families in the WIO community, we're united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners. Students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? The Student of the Month nominations are open, and we will begin recognizing Students of the Month in October. Oral communications from the public. Members of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes, longer with the permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee? Seeing none. Student representative report. We have a newly identified student representative, Owen Silva, who is a senior from Raleigh, and he will begin his reports to the committee at the October 9th meeting. The next item is the 2024-2025 school improvement plans. Each year, the schools create an improvement plan and present it to the committee. This gives us a good expectation of what the goals are for the schools and how they intend to reach them. The school improvement plans are developed by each school's leadership team working with their school council. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent to begin.
So I'll be loud. Whisper. So I'll be brief just to say we have our 5 principals here tonight, and I believe almost all of the co-chairs. I feel like there was one. No, it looks like we have the co-chair or a representative from the school council. Just as a reminder of process, so by law, this is a plan that is produced, as Linda said, by the principal in conjunction with the school council. To lay out the priorities for the school year ahead. I will remind you that this year, we had a discussion last year about streamlining the school improvement plans. They were 3-year plans. We refined these so they're a 1-year plan, similar to the way that the district strategy is written. So it is, we tried to condense, they were getting long and arduous, and oftentimes there were multi-year goals that weren't real clear what the work was for the year ahead. So we had discussions, and you all agreed that we would refine these to be a 1-year plan, focus on 2 or 3 goals and a handful of actions under each goal to focus the work that the leadership team would do over the course of the year. So we drew lots. And the agreement was that we would go in good old-fashioned order this year, as we have in the past. So we're going to start off with Beth Yando from Newbury Elementary, who's bringing her co-chair. Okay, but it's still really loud.
Okay. I'm setting my phone on a timer out of respect for my colleagues, so I don't talk too long, okay? Because sometimes once you get into it, you lose track of time. So I'm going to start that now and get started. I'd like to introduce Ginny King, my co-chair. On the school council, another parent is Mike Liska, and then we just had 1 teacher representative last year, which was Mary Valonis, thank you. It's late at night. Okay, so I will get started. I'm going to start on page 5 and just update you on our social emotional goal. There's a lot of data here that we collected throughout the year. As some of the patterns that we identified, was a location of behavior. We collect a lot of behavior data to know what maybe we need to put in place or when we need to pull the students together. And you can see that we had 38% of our incidents took place in the classroom. This is the behavior office referrals. 34% of the incidents took place on the playground, and 16% of the incidences took place in the bus or the hallway. And we noticed that a lot of the office referrals were happening during our lunchtime, cafeteria, and recess. At one point, we pulled the kids back together and we went over our expectations, went over the playground rules, and that made a big difference. And then you can see the type of data that the percentage of behaviors, 54% of the incidents were due to physical contact, 12% of the incidents were due to social conflict, and 12% of the incidences were due to inappropriate language. A little later on, I'll introduce my new goal, but it's correlated to this data. So how do we work on behaviors? As you know, we do a lot with PBIS, reinforce that. We follow CARES, and we have posters throughout the school. So the students, whether they're in the bathroom, in the hallway, different places, they know what the C stands, what cooperation looks like in the bathroom or in the hallway or on the playground. We spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year doing lesson plans with our PBIS handbook. Each day we introduce, today you're going to learn about CARES in the cafeteria, CARES on the playground. It's important to set those expectations. And then we also are continuing with, different social thinking curriculums. We do a lot with zones of regulation. We're going to spend a little more time on that. And you can see below that the number of students that see the guidance counselor and the social worker. I have to say we're off to a really good start this year. I don't have any little coloring clubs in my office or any kids that are having a hard time coming into school. So, I'm pleased right now. There was one who maybe was having a hard time, got her friends around her, she came in, so I'm pleased with that, because usually the first week of school you start to identify kids who might have anxiety around school, but we haven't really seen that. So I think it's important setting our expectations on the first day for students. And then our second goal was that 80% of students will meet 100% typical growth in the areas of mathematics and literacy as demonstrated by iReady assessment in grades 2 to 6. To kind of give you a better picture of the growth that cohorts have made, I put, you could see 2022 to 23, and then 23 to 24. So I grouped it by cohorts, because oftentimes we talk about grade levels, and you compare, it's not the same group of students. So to me and for the whole staff, it's really important to look if we're making a difference in certain cohorts. So you can see we went up in most areas. Grade 5 in math, we're down by 10%. And then overall, we stayed the same. And in literacy, we kind of went up in one area. Grade 3 went down by like 1%, 2% in grade 4. Grade 5, we went down there. And it's interesting that we've stayed at 76% in both math and ELA. And we talk a lot about this data when we have grade level data meetings after we administer the data, the different types of tests, and we look at that, and we have questions that we talk about. What trends are we seeing? What supports maybe do we need in place for students? And so that really helps us with our Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction that happens in the classroom. And then on page 9, you can see our overall progress, students' performance data from the iReady. I'm pleased that really when you look at two grade levels below, it's a low percentage there. So we're really moving students closer to the grade level for those who need intervention, who aren't there yet. And then I'm going to move to our new goals, because I want to talk about those on page 10. as I said, we looked at a lot of our behavior data, and it was pretty evident that a lot of things that happen on the playground or in the lunchroom are self-regulation skills. So we decided that to provide a learning environment that fosters resilient students who utilize up to 3 strategies that will increase self-regulation and self-control. So on our opening day assemblies, which we have with each grade level, I introduced these. One of the strategies we decided, we wanted something that students would learn, that we could reinforce throughout the school, and that it was simple that I could reinforce it at morning announcements. So the first one I taught the students was to stop and count to 5, and sometimes that's enough just to kind of calm them so they don't aggress on someone or say something they're going to later regret. The practice, the deep breathing, we do that every morning at NES, except on Fridays when we have Dancing Friday. But most mornings, we start our day with our inhale and our exhale, and, I talk to them about the science behind it, how it helps calm you down. And the slide that I introduced them on opening day was inhaling 5 times, and I said, if you're really upset, you might want to do that instead of 3. And we all practiced doing that. We practiced stopping and counting by 5. And then the other one that I taught them is walk away and take a break. Like if you're in a situation, you're feeling like really agitated, and you think you're going to do something that you're going to regret, remove yourself from the situation. So far, I have to say, we have not had anyone sent up from the playground, so whether or not they're practicing these on the playground, I'm not quite sure, but we're reminding them every day, and it seems to, it's something that the teachers have down and the students have down, and so the data that we collected last year, I thought that this would be a good goal for us to give them some strategies, because oftentimes we tell students, like, have self-control, but we don't give them any skills or any strategies to use. So I'm hoping that this will help them, that they're aware of these 3 things and they start to use the language as the year goes on. And then our other goal was 80% of the students in grades K to 6 will show growth in writing in 1 or more levels using the CKLA grade level rubric. 3 writing prompts will be given during the 24-25 school year. Grade 6 will administer a writing prompt 2 times a year, and it will be scored using the MCAS writing rubric. That's something that we already have in place in 6th grade, and it's giving us good data. We decided through the CKLA implementation team, in our data meetings, that writing was an area that we really needed to focus on and teach students to have perseverance, working on, their ideas that they're putting in writing and conventions. So we thought if we developed 1 writing prompt that we do at the beginning of the year, and then we score it, and we use the same writing prompt mid-year, and then the same writing prompt at the end of the year, we can collect some nice data to see their progress on conventions or just coming up for their idea development for their writing. So we're excited to see how that plays out. And there's going to be a lot of writing this year with CKLA. There are going to be other writing prompts throughout the year, but this is one that we're going to focus on because it's the same writing prompt. Oftentimes they're different writing prompts, but we want to see what it looks like, kind of have like a portfolio, so when a parent comes in, they can see the beginning of the year, end of the year, and middle of the year. And then we're hoping that all students will make some growth, which I'm 100% sure they will. And at first, we weren't going to do it in kindergarten and 1st grade, but we decided let's start in kindergarten, and we're going to do it right up through 6th grade. 6th grade's always done a writing prompt 2 times a year, and they've used the MCAS rubric to score, so they're going to continue with that. And then you can see on page 12 just some of our action steps that we're going to be doing for the social emotional goal, and then our writing goal on page 14 through 15, we have our action steps there. And one other thing that I want to note, are there any questions about my goals first before I talk about the facilities on page 16? Narissa?
Sorry, I just have two quick questions. One of the things that I heard you say was that you're seeing a lot of the behavioral issues where a student is getting sent to the office during the lunch and recess block, but I don't see those individuals in the goals, listed in the goals as the responsibility for implementing some of these strategies. Are they sort of lumped in with teachers? So recess monitors, cafeteria monitors, who would seemingly be the ones prompting during those worst times for the students to employ those strategies?
Yep, the recess monitors, I've gone over that with them and in the lunchroom, and the teachers know. I mean, I remind them every day, because I'm feeling like the more we talk about it, the students are going to kind of have that muscle memory and remember that that's what I do. But we also talked at some point later on, oops. Stop that.
You made it to the Q&A, so that's...
I know. We also talked about maybe later on in the year, if students are kind of forgetting, I'm having some students come over from the high school and maybe like do some skits to just kind of refresh it for students, because I find that whenever we have the high school students over, the younger students really like that, and they learn from that. But yes, it's something. There are three simple things that everyone can remember, and what I like about this, both goals are very simple, and already people are talking about them in the building, and I find, like Brian was saying in the past, we had these elaborate goals that were very wordy, and not everyone could speak to them, but I think we have two goals that we can really focus on and everyone can speak to.
And I appreciate that about your goals as well.
Yeah.
My one other question, which I know probably has been up for discussion in your school council, is just on that drop in the scores that you saw for, it was fifth, I think it's the current sixth grade,
Yep.
right? And just if you saw any sort of commonality in there as that could be addressed through as part of your plan, or if you feel like it's just just either strategies that need to be employed in the classroom or...
Well, I find sometimes that in sixth grade, where they are developmentally, they tend to rush too, and their perseverance, they don't always find the meaning in why they're doing it. So we're spending a lot of time talking about that and say, do your very best work, persevere, because a lot of times I find in sixth grade, they're like, yeah, I'm doing my iReady, those are my results. But it is just one data point that we're focusing on too, so we have other ones to look at. But I find perseverance in sixth grade, and the teachers have said, like, it's long because the iReady test is a little longer in sixth grade and they get burned out. Maybe they're not putting as much time in, or same with fifth. So we're kind of talking more about the meaning of it and do your very best work. And the perseverance is big.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I do appreciate this being, I feel like it's succinct and actionable, like all the way through. So thank you for that. I know, obviously, the superintendent has been saying that, but I think it gives me like I don't always have a great grasp coming out of these of the exactly what things look like in the school day. In this one, I very much have a clear idea of what that's going to look like in the school day. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions before I talk about facilities?
I have a question.
Okay.
You say here that 16% of the incidents happen on the bus and in the hallway. Is the bus drivers including in the PBIS to help reinforce that on the bus of what you're trying to teach in the schools?
Yes. This week, we're starting to have some stuff bubble up on the bus. So I have all the bus students at the end of the day in the gym, so 3 days in a row, I have done the PBIS on the bus. I went on the bus with my green tickets and the CARES on the bus, gave it to all the bus drivers, and two of the bus drivers in particular said, like, what a difference it made. So, I mean, it's nice that I have them at the end of the day, putting them on the bus. They go to Zero Voice, we talk about it, and then if there's one bus that's having an issue, I load them last and kind of work on it. Tracy Marino, my new assistant principal, is out at the buses in the morning, so if something's bubbling up, we can address it quickly, and I find that makes a big difference.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I just want to mention the facilities. If you've been to NES, the town of Newbury did a wonderful job, like paving, we have all-new blacktop, and I was a little worried. I said to Brian, he was worried about the parking spots, and I was worried about Foursquare, and they both got done. He said, I think the parking spots are more important. I'm thinking, now tell that to the 400 students who use that Foursquare every day. So it's been painted, and the basketball court's painted, and we had them even pave a walkway from one of our ALPS programs, the medically fragile students, so they could get out safer. So it looks really nice outside. We also have a plan where we're in phase 1 of phase 2 for fixing the HVAC, putting cooling throughout the whole building. They've been on the roof a lot. And then we have our other basic needs that we're going to be addressing: the ceilings, painting, bathrooms, sinks and toilets, and all those things, because it's about 30 years old and it does need some cosmetic work. We met with the town of Newbury, and we have a nice plan in place, and they've been people in kind of doing an assessment of the building, what needs to be done next. So it's a nice partnership there, and it's needed, and they've been very responsive to our needs. So I just want to thank the town of Newbury for that. And then the final page is just my seniors who graduated last year, and it's always the highlight when they come back and walk through the halls, and we hope we recognize them. Some of them really change over time, so. And that's all I have for you. Not too long.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Yondo?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. And just to confirm, I wasn't modeling, I'm still not modeling it. So just for principals, we were trained on the microphones last month, and we're supposed to keep them at a distance, and they'll adjust the sound in the back. So don't do what I did and pull it really close because it gets loud. So, all right, so we still going in order? Yeah? So is Nicole next? Pine Grove?
I can go next.
I thought that's what we were. Okay.
Okay, so don't touch this?
As long as it's green, you should be good.
And it's green. Okay. First, I want to welcome, my co-chair was unable to make it tonight, but I am excited that I have Matt Ziv here tonight. He is part of our school council, but also a Rowley parent and also captain of Rowley Police Department. So community member, parent, good at all. So I'm excited to have him here, so thank you for coming, Matt. Before I get started, I just wanted to mention that I decided this year that my presentation, I find myself as a learner, and I can appreciate with students and how they learn. I find that I present better when it is a story that I'm telling, when it's a narrative that I'm telling, and instead of reading off of a document, I find myself not able to get out the words that I need to say, so I took the time to write a narrative about my school improvement plan to present to all of you tonight. So, a little bit different. Okay. It's a pleasure to share with you an update on the Pine Grove School's progress over the past year and our new school improvement plan. Reflecting on the journey we've undertaken, it's clear that our collective efforts have made a significant impact. We've celebrated numerous successes and milestones that underscore our commitment to the student growth and well-being. I'm going to start with updates on our goals from last year. Goal number 1 was our social emotional well-being goal. We set out to prioritize the social emotional well-being of our students, knowing that strong emotional foundations are key to academic success. This year we focused on enhancing self-regulation, problem solving, and a sense of responsibility. Through programs like our anti-bullying assembly, inclusive discussions led by Sam Drazen, motivational talks from Rob Surratt, we instilled values of kindness and perseverance. The PGS Pride Meter, which tracked nearly 400 positive notes home, was a huge success, motivating students with 3 school-wide rewards for their outstanding behavior. While we face the sadness of losing our tracker, a beloved therapy dog, in April, the community came together stronger. We learned lessons of loyalty, grief, and friendship. And I do want to share with all of you that I'm excited to share that we now have a new black lab puppy named Bogey, who is currently in training to become our next therapy dog. Goal number 2, updates. This is our math goal. Math achievement was a central focus for us last year, with a targeted goal to have at least 90% of kindergarten and first grade students mastering foundational math skills by May 2024, and a strong emphasis on geometry growth for grades 2 to 6. I am so proud to share that 76% of our students in grades 2 to 6 achieve grade level proficiency in the geometry domain in the spring, continuing an upward trend at Pine Grove. This was from 70% in 2022, 60% in 2021, and only 46% in 2020. The success of our students can be attributed to several important initiatives. The math specialists administered the universal screeners for number sense to all kindergarten, and the first grade students providing us with clear, detailed data on our youngest learners. Students in grades 2 to 6 completed the iReady math diagnostic 3 times throughout the year, supplemented by growth monitoring assessments every 6 weeks. We had already delved deeply into our iReady data and how to analyze it. But this year, with the universal screeners being new, we prioritized digging even deeper into that screening data. We analyzed it in new ways. We worked closely with the company, Forefront, and it allowed us to gain valuable insights, particularly through the universal number sense screener domain. We discovered that a flat line actually means that their assessments are indicating growth, as the assessments in the universal screeners, to which we did not know, become more challenging from fall to mid-year into spring. Our co-teaching teams comprised of classroom teachers, every single special ed teacher, the math specialists, and they collaborated daily to deliver differentiated instruction to all students. The math specialists compiled 4 years of geometry data from the iReady math diagnostic and 6 years from our MCAS assessments, working with the math implementation team and administration to drive instructional improvements. Teachers were provided with supplemental geometry instruction daily. To keep geometry engaging in our math implementation, the math implementation team built excitement math around school-wide, posting enrichment problems in the hallways for students and teachers to solve while they lined up or transitioned to lunch. They also partnered with the PTA to purchase vinyl multiplication table decals that are now on our stairwells, making learning an integral and enjoyable part of our school environment. Additionally, the teachers received training in a district-wide problem-solving strategy called UPS Check, Understand, Plan, and Solve. The math specialists shared this approach with families through a letter, including a UPS Check template for all at home to extend learning beyond the classroom. Our dedicated 3 data hours and weekly PLC meetings allow us to analyze both iReady and universal screening data. They help us to create detailed action plans, assign educators to work with targeted students, and communicate with families their child's progress. Growth remains our #1 priority, and the guidance counselors are also actively involved in our action plans to support students' academics and social emotional well-being. And then an update on our ELA goal. During the 2023-2024 school year, all teachers in grades 2 to 6 administered the iReady diagnostic assessment and reviewed results during data meetings. Alongside DIBELS screening data, these meetings focused on establishing Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions, as well as strengthening Tier 1 instruction. To address these needs identified in these data meetings, Pine Grove continued to implement co-teaching, as in math, utilizing all special education teachers, our literacy specialist, our EL teacher, and our reading interventionist. In addition, the PGS master schedule incorporated this year a small group reading block for all, scheduled into a time each day, as well as an interactive read aloud in which the 6th grade participated in, who have longer academic blocks. Also, to support these literacy efforts, the district provided teachers with professional development sessions focused on the implementation of the CKLA curriculum. The kindergarten and first grade teams worked closely with reading specialists and consultants from Landmark, focusing on the essential reading skills, phonic, phonemic awareness, fluency, to which we believe resulted in the significant progress towards our SIP goals from last year. We're happy to say 94% of our kindergartners last year were core in DIBELS. 81% were core in DIBELS. We have our second graders, 77% were core in their oral reading fluency. Third grade, 71% were core in their oral reading fluency. Grade 4, 72% made typical growth in iReady. Grade 5, 81% made typical growth in iReady, and 60% made typical growth in iReady for grade 6. And now an update on our cultural proficiency goal. Pine Grove School made significant strides in fostering inclusiveness and celebrating diversity. Staff and students actively participated in events designed to raise awareness about culture and diversity, creating a school environment where all voices were valued and recognized. One of the key initiatives was our Pride Pages, where administrators and guidance counselors and social workers visited classrooms to conduct interactive read-alouds. We focused on themes such as equity, belonging, and inclusion. This initiative fostered important conversations around values and prompted a sense of understanding and community among all of our students and staff. At the beginning of the school year, the BDEI Committee, Belonging, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, administered a survey to all families. The survey was available in multi-languages, and it was incorporated into our open house. It allowed us to gain a deeper understanding of the cultural backgrounds within our community. The information collected helped guide our efforts to celebrate and honor the diversity of the Pine Grove School family. Throughout the year, we continue to celebrate various cultures and holidays through social media, school announcements, and newsletters. Guest speakers were invited to classrooms, sharing stories and experiences that reflected our commitment to the diversity and inclusion. A highlight of the year was our winter sing-along, Once Again, to Now, in which students and staff participated in a joyful celebration of all of the different cultures at Pine Grove and all of the different religions that we all celebrate, and reinforced the message of unity and respect. Additionally, a student inclusion team from Triton High School once again came over and collaborated with our first and second grade students this year. Through book readings and activities, they focused on, once again, inclusion, kindness, and acceptance. It was these older students that helped to model the importance of embracing the differences in our community. And that's an update on our goals from last year. All right. I hadn't written the pages at all the goals were on, but I did it quickly, so hopefully I'm right, because I heard Beth telling you all the pages. So I'm going to move on to our goals for the upcoming year. And I do want to make note that some of the goals seem similar to, especially our academic goals, they seem similar to some of the goals that we had before, but the reason being is because some of the work isn't done, and also because of the new dyslexia guidelines, we have some new action steps that we want to put in place for some of our for all of our readers in our school. So that was some of the reasons behind that. So goal number 1, that is our math goal. So I have by May 2025, at least 75% of kindergarten and first grade students will score proficient on the universal screeners for number sense. And then by 1B, by May 2025, at least 75% at each grade level 2 to 6 will make typical or stretch growth based on the iReady. Once again, some of our action steps, we will continue to implement the universal screeners. We also have professional learning for teachers. This is something new. We are going to provide monthly or bi-monthly volunteer opportunities. It's a professional development opportunity, and it's going to be led by our math specialist. She has volunteered her time to help teachers to improve their instructional strategies and consistency in math. She also discussed with me a teacher could come to them if she had a student that just wasn't making growth in the classroom. She says, I could help them to come up with strategies or any type of activities that they could use to help that student move. But we also talked about those teachers who have the students that are above grade level in the class. So she has offered to work with teachers on those type of enrichment activities and how to get those students to move as well. Continue for grades 2 to 6, the diagnostic assessment for iReady. And then we're also going to continue our data hours 3 times a year with progress monitoring between meetings to review data. We will continue to create action plans and adjust instruction as needed. Meeting for data hours 3 times a school year to analyze student data and create action plans seems to be a highly effective approach for ensuring student success. With this all-hands approach, it involves assigning specific adults to work closely with students, ensuring that each child receives the support that they need to make progress. By incorporating regular progress monitoring, we will continuously track student growth, adjust strategies as necessary, and provide ongoing support to facilitate improvement across the board. We feel that this comprehensive, responsive method ensures that all students, regardless of their current performance, are supported in their academic journey and given the opportunity to achieve their full potential. We're also going to continue our math team. They're going to continue to meet regularly, and they're going to continue to dive into instructional improvements based on the data and the analysis. And we also would like to continue to build upon our test trackers for the end of units in our Math in Focus. Teachers will be tracking their scores, and then we will all, during our data meetings, be monitoring student learning and growth. And that's our math goal. And on page 13, I have our second goal, that's our ELA goal. And we have 3 subgroups. We have by May 2025, at least 80% of kindergarten and first grade students will achieve DIBELS composite scores in the core range. By May 2025, at least 80% of second and third grade students will score in the core range for DIBELS oral reading fluency. And then 2C, by May 2025, at least 80% of students in grades 4 to 6 will make at least typical growth as demonstrated by their overall placement on iReady. I did want to read our why real quick with that because it was a reason to why part of our goal looked the same as our last one. We felt that building strong literacy skills is a fundamental to academic success. By focusing on the younger grades early on with early reading skills with DIBELS for K to 3 and iReady growth for grades 4 to 6, we will aim to close the achievement gaps and prepare students for more complex literacy tasks in later grades. Our efforts now will be bolstered with the new dyslexia guidelines, which will support all readers by providing targeted strategies for reading difficulties. So we will continue to administer our iReady. Any new teachers, we will train them how to administer and also train them on how to read the data for our iReady. Also, our reading specialists, as a result from attending the Dyslexia Institution, they're going to be providing training to teachers, evidence-based reading approaches to enhance teaching practices. This professional development will help teachers to deliver high-quality instruction that can address various reading challenges. Teachers will learn to use tools and techniques that benefit all students, including those who may struggle with reading. Raising the overall level of literacy instruction in the classroom. Our goal is to continue to improve student success by promoting personalized, evidence-based strategies, improving teacher training, and emphasize on early intervention. These practices benefit not only students with dyslexia, but also all readers by creating a more inclusive and effective learning environment that supports diverse needs and fosters overall literacy development. And then the implement of the Dyslexia Action Plan, integrating the reading specialists as well. They'll be integrating the new dyslexia guidelines from the Mass Dyslexia Institute to support all readers, not just those with dyslexia, but improving phonemic awareness and reading fluency. And then these guidelines emphasize early identification of students and interventions that we need to put in place immediately. We're also going to continue to collaborate with Landmark Consultants, integrating effective strategies for students with language-based disabilities. Our reading specialists are going to meet with teachers to fine-tune our data meeting process in our Tier 1 instruction and our literacy interventions based on these dyslexia guidelines. And then we are also going to continue, just as with math, I don't think I need to read that whole thing of our data hours, where we have 3 data hours a year with progress monitoring in between to develop action plans to meet the needs of all students. And that is our ELA goal. And then our last goal is a social emotional well-being goal. This is on page 14. By June 2025, we aim to enhance social-emotional well-being for all students and staff through comprehensive student program. We want to target a 15% increase in positive student feedback on a well-being survey and a 10% reduction on behavioral referrals compared to our previous year. The first thing, one of the steps that we're going to implement is we're going to have SEL themes. We're going to implement monthly SEL themes through school-wide assemblies, classroom discussions, and interactive projects. Implementing monthly social-emotional learning themes in the 2024 school year represents a significant advancement over traditional character education approaches. This offers a more intricate and responsive method to support elementary students' emotional and social development. Unlike past character education programs, which often focus on discrete values and behaviors, social-emotional themes framework, they will address students' emotional health from multiple angles. SEL's emphasis on regular interactive activities strengthens communities and supports diverse students, including those dealing with any type of trauma or special challenges. We're also going to work towards developing a peer mentorship program. We're going to enhance social-emotional development and foster a supportive school community. We're excited to introduce a mentorship program in collaboration with our ISED committee. This program will integrate our SEL themes for the year, such as reflection, into a meaningful mentorship activity. We're going to be pairing upper grade classrooms with lower grade classrooms. Students are going to have the opportunity to engage in collaborative projects and discussions that reinforce all of these themes. This initiative will not only strengthen peer relationships in the school and with the staff, but also provide younger students with a positive role model and a sense of belonging. Celebrated through announcements, newsletters, and our PGS Pride, our PBS framework, this mentorship program will aim to cultivate empathy, support, and growth for all students and create a more connected and emotionally resilient school community at Pine Grove. And our next action step is SEL resources for families. We want to continue to provide SEL resources and newsletters to families to support social-emotional learning at home. We want to support social-emotional development and foster a cohesive school community. We want to start building a place where parents and families can go for more resources in collaboration with social workers and guidance counselors. This will serve as a valuable resource for families. It will offer essential resources focused on acceptance, inclusiveness, and kindness. It will provide information to help parents foster empathy and resilience at home, as well as resource lists that include local support groups, financial assistance, mental health crisis services. By making these resources at Pine Grove, along with our school district, we want resources readily available to aim to strengthen the home-school connection and to ensure that every family has the support needed to promote their child's best and well-being. And last, we will create a pre- and post survey. A survey that is based and developed for each child at each grade level. It will have a component of social-emotional well-being, school climate, student engagement, and self-reflection. They will be given this survey at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, and we will discuss these results with our ISED committee. And those are our goals. I do not have any, because of our building, I do not have any school facility needs at this time. So that's why it was blank. So that's good news. Yes.
Does anybody have any questions for Nicole? Go ahead, Paul.
Can you tell me what ISED committee stands for?
So that's our social emotional committee. It's investing in student social emotional development. You're welcome. We developed it, I think it was 3 years ago. Yeah.
I'll go first. So thank you for this. I appreciate that it is, it's very data-driven. I'm seeing that, a lot of that throughout your presentation here. One of my questions, I guess, is it looks like you're looking at a different set of data now than you have been for the past couple of years. So in at least the last two, you've been looking very specifically into some of these the topics within, for instance, math and within ELA, and now it looks like you're looking at the broader scores. Is that because you feel like, so we haven't had our sort of data review here yet, so I'm just wondering if the shift is because you're refocusing or because you're seeing so much progress in those areas that you've been concentrating on that you feel like they're sort of treading water now and you can look at the bigger picture again?
That's such a great question, and I've gone back and forth with the staff as well as our math specialist and our literacy specialist, and I'll speak to math first. Math, when we created the goal of geometry, I remember years ago and being questioned and you asking me the amount of progress that we saw is we skyrocketed. You can look at the data to see that what we did was working. So throughout my presentation, when I talked about at data meetings and looking for trends, when talking with Michelle Loico, our math specialist, we had talked about, so what are the trends now and where do we need to go? And I think that we are trying to discover right now with the data where we need to go. Pine Grove is really thriving in the area of math right now. We're seeing it in our iReady. We're seeing it in our, our MCAS scores. We're doing really well, and we continue to grow. So I think this year we wanted to continue doing what we were doing, but also, when I was talking about the data for the universal screeners being totally transparent, some of the ways that we were reading that data was not the way that you should be reading that data. And we were thinking that our students weren't making progress the way that they were making, but then when we called the company and we said, wait, these kids are not making progress, we looked at the data differently, and the flat line means they're making progress. Where you look at universal screener data, you think you're going to be looking for a trajectory up, and we didn't know that. So now we're going back to that, and we're trying to find trends, and it's really hard to find trends in the universal screener. So I think that what we did was working, and I think we need to go in that direction, but I think we're figuring out, like, which domain do we really want to move to now? And then the area of ELA, we need to keep focusing on those younger grades. And now with the new dyslexia guidelines coming up, and those instructional strategies and is universal for everyone. It's not just for students that have dyslexia. So I feel like with the tweaks with our data hours and the tweaks with some of our instructional strategies and the district providing all of this data, that we're going to be able to help all learners and not something specifically. But I really think we need to focus on these younger grades and building those foundation skills, so we're eliminating all this stuff, in the upper grades and these kids being picked up on IEPs and trying to eliminate some of that. So we're just trying to focus in on what we've been doing.
That makes sense, and thank you. And
It's probably long-winded.
No, it's good.
I tend to do that.
I think having read about sort of the new direction of approaching dyslexia in the general classroom and thinking about all the different ways that students learn, I only see that as making the whole instructional environment stronger. I think that's a huge benefit that's just coming out of that. I don't want to say it's a forced focus, but it's definitely there's a motivation, I guess, to move in that direction, and I think it just benefits everybody. My other question for you, just moving on a little bit, is in your social emotional goal, I was just interested that you have a behavioral referrals component to that, but it doesn't seem like there's anything specific in your actions toward behavioral referrals. Can you just talk about that?
I think our goal is that with the action steps that we have, that will eliminate that, because, just as Beth was talking, when you have the PGS Pride and you have the Pride system, the tickets and so forth, and you're constantly just modeling, positive behaviors that's going to self-reflect. And when we're on the playground and we're doing that, and then all of our social emotional themes and working with the role models in the upper grades to show what these positive behaviors look like. I think we're hoping that these action steps are going to help to eliminate the behaviors instead of just focusing on that, the negative.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
The advantage of being long-winded is you covered my question on the universal screener.
Oh, good.
Does anybody else have any other questions? No? I think your story said it all.
Thank you. Hopefully it wasn't too long, but, all right, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Nicole. Nice job, Matt.
Good job, Matt.
Say again. I know, yeah. All right. Michael Estuccio, principal at Salisbury Elementary, is next.
Switch seats. Switch it up on me.
Keeping you on your toes. Good evening, everybody. So I just want to start by introducing Erica Champagne, the co-chair of the Salisbury Elementary School Council. And I appreciate her presence here tonight. As I'm sure you're all aware, I was not involved in the development of this school improvement plan as it was developed last year, but I am happy to speak to it and have Erica here to speak to any parts that I may be unfamiliar with as I continue to learn. I do want to recognize the Salisbury Elementary School Council who developed this plan. In addition to Erica, the other members were former principal Catherine Daw, teachers Kara Balkis and Lillian Chalifor, parents Daniel Bertrand and Holly Counts Van Hoos, and community rep Anna Riley from the Pettingill House. Before I dive into the plan, I do just want to take a minute to thank all the student, staff, and families at SES for the warm welcome. It's been a wonderful few weeks connecting with folks out at the crosswalk, being present in the cafeteria, visiting classrooms. One of the themes that we began the year with the staff was high expectations with a high level of support. So no matter the student's background, we're expecting, great things from them, and we're going to support them to achieve those things. I think you'll see that reflected, certainly in the plan. And we'll be talking about another theme that we begin with a little later on in the presentation. But I find that important because it connects back to our district equity statement about making sure that all students have the rigorous education needed to be successful and the supports needed to achieve success. So we will dive on in with the previous goals and an update on our progress towards those goals. So goal number one for the 2023 to 2024 school year had to do with reading, and it was quite a detailed goal with various bullet points pertaining to different assessments and different grade levels. So just taking a moment to go through each of those components. For the goal of 80% of students in grades 1 through 6 will be comprehending at grade level as measured by the iReady reading benchmark. The results in the spring showed that 58% of students were comprehending at or above grade level according to that benchmark. For the next subsection of that goal, 80% of students will attain annual typical growth as measured by iReady reading benchmark. A composite of 67% of students in grades 1 through 6 met their annual typical growth. We continue on to page 5. The next portion of that goal was that 80% of students, and so this would be all students in grades K through 3, and those receiving reading interventions in grades 4 through 6 would be decoding at grade level as measured by the DIBELS 8 benchmark assessment. And you can see that 58% of students in those groups met that goal, K through 6. And then finally, the last portion of that reading goal, 80% of students will attain average growth as measured by the DIBELS 8 benchmark assessment. You can see that 61% of students attained that average growth. And that percentage was calculated using the DIBELS Zones of Growth report. So that was the progress that was made towards goal number 1, which was reading. Goal number 2 was the math goal, and as you can see there, there were 2 components to that. The first, 80% of students will demonstrate conceptual understanding and application of mathematical skills as measured by the iReady Math Benchmark Assessment. Spring results showed that 59% of students in grades 1 through 6 were at or above grade level. I do want to note that in the last sentence of the paragraph underneath, that the results did show a relative weakness in geometry, but that the council noted there was higher achievement last year than there were in the previous 5 years. So some growth there was noted. And then the second portion of that math goal was that 80% of students will attain annual typical growth as measured by the iReady Math Benchmark Assessment and Early Numeracy Screener. And you can see that 65% of students made typical growth as measured by those assessments. Goal number 3 was the social emotional support goal, and this was organized around the 5 competencies of social emotional learning, looking for students to show growth in self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. The council set a measurement of student-teacher surveys, anecdotal reports, and office referrals. And the progress towards the goal goes on to describe a lot of the efforts that Mrs. Keeler, I give a lot of credit to, kind of pioneered revitalizing the PBIS systems at Salisbury Elementary and improving them. And so there are a few components that are listed there. Effort and attitude cards, which are given out to students who demonstrate positive effort and attitude during the school day or school events. Super tickets, which are tickets that are given to students whenever they are showing expected behaviors that are aligned with those core values, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And then Student of the Month recognition assemblies, which are aligned with the character education effort at Salisbury Elementary School, where the students meet monthly, learn about some sort of desired or positive or expected characteristic, and then the staff monitors and nominates students to be recognized for demonstrating that characteristic. So 3 different positive reinforcement systems, hoping to continue to teach students those 5 core competencies of social emotional learning. The council also included in that next paragraph just some other details of actions undertaken to grow students' skills in this area, including mindfully selected read-alouds in K-3 that reinforced skills in those different competency areas, as well as school-wide art projects, the Belonging Tree Project, a bulletin board that all students were able to contribute to, and then various assemblies and presenters that were brought in either by administration or PTA to reinforce, again, those core competencies. Everything we do at SES is aligned to the Bs, so this is Nicole was talking about PGS Pride and NES has CARES, SES has the Bs, and those are be respectful, be responsible, be safe, be kind, and these are reinforced daily. So that is kind of what all those effort and attitude super tickets, right, Student of the Month, and the characteristics that we explicitly teach to students stem from and are aligned to. So that is an update on the 2023 to 2024 goals and the progress made there. At this time, we'll turn to page 8, where we have our goals for the current school year. And as the committee and Nicole and Beth were speaking of, you can see that they've been I hesitate to say simplified, perhaps streamlined here, a little more straightforward. And so I just want to speak to each of those, certainly talk through some of the priority actions that are in the plan, and then also mention a few new priority actions that are not in the plan as well. So goal 1 is that by the end of the 2024 to 2025 school year, there will be a 20% increase in the number of students performing at grade level and achieving annual typical or stretch growth as measured by the iReady Reading Benchmark Assessment. In order to achieve this goal, some of the priority actions that the council believe will be most impactful is supporting the implementation of high-quality instructional materials. So for reading, this would include CKLA in grades K through 5 and EL education in grade 6. Professional development opportunities continue to exist for teachers so that we can support them as they continue to familiarize themselves and refine their implementation of these materials. It's been really wonderful to see the benefits of some of the summer work that our own teachers have done to improve our implementation of these materials, particularly relative to reading. Anna stumbled upon an impromptu moment recently where a teacher, she was meeting with our reading specialist, and a teacher went to go visit the reading specialist, raving about how wonderful some of the summer work was that the teachers did to improve particularly writing in CKLA. So another action item that we think will support our achievement of the school is the continued use of those benchmark assessments and progress monitoring. And as Beth and Nicole described, at SES, we follow that same schedule of data meetings 3 times a year with facilitated meetings where teachers are looking at their data, their classroom data, identifying trends and patterns, and then identifying, right, what tweaks need to be made to Tier 1 instruction in the classroom based on trends, what Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions might be necessary for particular students, and then also what enrichment and extension opportunities might be necessary for students who are achieving well and require challenges. Another action item that will support our achievement of this goal is the continued implementation of co-teaching. We have classroom teachers, special educators, our reading specialist, and some of our Title I interventionists who are trained as co-teachers. And so continuing to provide student support in the classroom via that model is something that we hope will have a positive impact on our reading results. And then finally, we'll continue to use iReady instruction with our students in order to promote another tool for individualized, personalized learning where students can work on skills that are targeted to their needs based on the assessment identifying some lacking skills. And then I also just want to mention that this year we'll also have our ELA instructional team, so we'll be digging into our MCAS data and our iReady data, which will help us further identify trends and needs in the building so that we can really target all tiers of instruction and really make sure that that's tailored towards student need. Goal 2 is our math goal, and that's by the end of 2024 to 2025, there'll be a 30% increase in the number of students performing at grade level and achieving annual typical or stretch growth as measured by the iReady Math Benchmark Assessment. And I have to say, many of the priority action items that I just described are consistent for math as well. So all of that data process that we follow for ELA, for all of those tiers of instruction, that's going to be consistent for math as well. I do want to take a moment just to mention Kathy Coleman, the previous math specialist at Salisbury Elementary School, retired, and we hired Taryn Gracia as our new math specialist, and she's been collaborating closely with Michelle Loico from Pine Grove and Laura Page from NES to make practices consistent across the district, which has been a wonderful support. And Taryn is also a former SES teacher, so familiar with a lot of families and kids in the building and the community as well. Any differences really here between the supports I just described? We do also implement the early numeracy screener that Nicole had mentioned so that we can really identify needs and front load supports. And we will also have a math instructional team that will be digging into all of our various data sources to find those trends so that we can really tailor our instruction as well. Goal 3 is to provide a learning environment that fosters resilient students who utilize strategies and skills for social and academic success. A few priority actions that Council identified to help us reach this goal are the continued implementation of PBIS. Positive observations have been made in our first few weeks of school. Again, to credit Mrs. Keeler and the committee she led to implement this, we have seen an increase in the number of tickets that are being handed out by our staff members to positively recognize behavior. That is incredibly important at the beginning of the year so that we can really set the expectation and reinforce efforts to meet that expectation. We'll continue with monthly character education assemblies to explicitly teach positive characteristics that we hope for, certainly the students in our school and the members of our societies. We also have the daily reinforcement of core values through those avenues that I described, so the super tickets, the effort and attitude cards, the student of the month at Salisbury Elementary. And then we will also practice something similar to what Beth had mentioned earlier, is monitoring our office referral data and explicitly training and retraining the students based on what that data says. So, if we do see a trend of behaviors on the playground, right, retraining or building systems that are responsive to that need so we can improve those outcomes. Otherwise, I do want to mention we have a few neat things going on relative to strategies and skills for social and academic success. Our PTA, thanks to funding from the Institution for Savings, installed 3 new sensory pathways in Salisbury Elementary over the summer. There's one in the preschool and kindergarten wing, one on the 1st through 3rd floor, and then one on the 4th through 6th floor as well. And in our opening day assemblies, in addition to, introducing new staff members and setting expectations and all that good stuff, we also trained the students on the purpose of these and how to use them when they're in the hallway. So it's a nice new self-regulation tool that we've had added thanks to our PTA, and thank you to the Institution for Savings. We also, our social worker, Mallory Perella, secured a grant through the Salisbury Police Department, and will be exploring developing a sensory room as well at Salisbury Elementary to add another tool that we can use to help students with self-regulation. So some exciting things going on in that department. So otherwise, outside of the action steps that are in the plan, I did want to mention just a few things that I'm certain we'll talk more about in the future. But in the spring, I invited all SES staff members to meet with me one-on-one for 30-minute conversations. And through those conversations, I spoke with each staff member about 3 questions, well, 4, but three kind of questions that drove our work. What should continue, what should start, and what should stop. And through that, I was able to identify trends based on staff feedback, and then make my own observations and data analysis over the summer to drive a few new action items that I just wanted to mention. And then I'll tell you about the 4th question. So the first thing is that in terms of the reading and math goal, we have reorganized our special educators' assignments and caseloads, and our service delivery kind of organization as well. We are moving towards a grade level organization, which is something that did exist in the past, but really trying to build strong grade level teams. The advantages of this are many, right? If our special educators are on grade level teams, they're able to become familiar with the grade level curriculum, the developmental level of those students. They're able to support students in class really in a more targeted and efficient way. We also find that when we set up that organization, those special educators are able to come to instructional support team and talk to grade level teachers in really specific and targeted ways about different accommodations that teachers can try to support students who may not even be identified for special education, but may be struggling and in need of some sort of accommodation, under DCAP. So that has been a new project that we are certainly adjusting to. One priority when we did that was in the data on page 7. You can see that our last year's grade 4 and last year's grade 5, so this year's grades 5 and 6, we do have quite a high percentage of students who are 1 or more grade level below according to the iReady. So we prioritized having 2 special educators working at grade 5 and 2 special educators working at grade 6, so that there really is ample support there for both students and staff, so we can really hopefully make some gains. Otherwise, I did want to mention through our data meeting process in the upcoming year, we are going to be implementing flexible grouping, so another way to step towards being as efficient as possible in our instruction. So flexible grouping, when we look at data, right, and we work with grade levels, that means there's a potential that we can really kind of meet all needs by sending students who might be in one class to work with another teacher during that intervention block. So really kind of almost dividing and conquering is a way to think about it. And so we're hoping that by stepping towards that intervention organization, that we might be able to really maximize our instruction. Otherwise, similar to what Nicole mentioned, we've rolled out those optional assessment trackers for CKLA and math, and that will really give the teachers some good visual data on where the student needs are. And then, I promise I'm wrapping up. Finally, our social emotional goal, we are centralizing the collection of the office referral data. So Jane and I are going to own all of that, and we'll be reviewing that with the staff monthly at our staff meetings to really help target, where are we seeing the needs in the school and what systems and structures do we either need to tweak or put in place or build from scratch, right? To really improve, data. And I'm looking forward to next year having, that data similar to what was described earlier for you. And then other than that, I just wanted to touch on attendance and absenteeism rates. In our student support team, which is Jane and I, our social worker, our guidance counselor, and our nurse, we're folding monitoring attendance and chronic absenteeism rates into that team so that we can really be monitoring that. Of course, front-loading, right, relationship building and making sure that school is a positive, exciting experience for students to hopefully, as our first effort, but we will be monitoring, our attendance and our chronic absenteeism rates through that committee as well. So I guess I will pause there before we go over the facilities information at the end for questions, or if Erica has anything to add about the plan.
I have a question on page 7. As I look at, I'm glad you mentioned that page because it has me a little concerned. If we look at grade 6, which I believe that class is now moving on to grade 7, if you look at the percentages, 51% of those students were below grade level. I just want to know what is being done for the middle school, to help. I don't know if information has been given on to the middle school as to the 51% of those kids that were below grade level.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, every year we do facilitate transition meetings between the elementary and middle school. And that can be for, various reasons. Teams will meet to discuss the transition of students who are on, 504 plans and IEPs, medical needs, and all of that data does get shared. There's a formal process through Aspen that our 6th grade teachers will go through to fill out, that information and pass that on. But certainly less formal opportunities for that exist too. I'm not sure that I can speak to exactly, what happened at SES in terms of sharing of information, but I know that in my previous role, I was certainly a part of many meetings where we were discussing students and their needs, both academically, behaviorally, social, emotionally, medically, to make sure that that transition, is as smooth as possible.
Yeah, because I know Salisbury has had some challenging years, and I'm just glad to hear that you're looking at the 5th and 6th grade because those are the students that are going to be moving on, and those areas are going to be tougher for them to close that gap if we don't start addressing those at the elementary level opposed to the middle school.
Yeah, absolutely. And we tried to be really quite mindful when we were reorganizing our special education system. And I'm pleased that we do have some special educators working at those grade levels with really strong math and reading backgrounds. We talk a lot about the importance of front loading, but in this situation, it's certainly critical to support students who are about to make a really significant transition in their education. So I'm hopeful that will, pay off, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye on it.
And I know you didn't have a lot of the past school improvement, but how is co-teaching going to help in those 5th and 6th grades?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're fortunate to have grown our number of teachers who were trained in co-teaching. Over the summer, we had some new staff who were trained, and the advantages of co-teaching, really, there are many of them, particularly when you have a special educator and a classroom teacher who are paired together together because they're bringing two similar but very, at the same time distinct skill sets to that partnership, right? You have your special educator who is really an expert in accommodations, modifications that can be made to curriculum to help students achieve, and then you have your classroom teacher who really is your expert on standards and your grade level curriculum. So from just that approach, students can benefit. And then we also talk about having, two licensed teachers in one classroom of students. There are 6 different approaches that they can implement through co-teaching in order to kind of play to their strengths, and certainly that can be true of their occupational strengths, but also the strengths of their relationship, because when you co-teach, it really it does depend on that dynamic between those two individuals. So, for example, teachers are able to parallel teach where they're implementing the same instruction to 2 different groups of students. They're able to do station teaching. They're able to truly co-teach where they're sharing the same instruction of one lesson with all students. So really, I think it comes down to it's a higher level of support for the students in a classroom than they would receive with just a classroom teacher. And at times a higher level of specialized support if you have a special educator, a reading specialist, someone with some sort of particular expertise as part of that instructional pairing. And something that Jane and I have been discussing with the reading specialist and math specialist and the school as a whole, right, is that this is a wonderful tool to have in our tool belt, but we really need to make sure that we're implementing it where the needs are. So that's something that we are mindful of, and also a challenge, I'll say, that we're facing because, certainly there are folks who are enthusiastic about, new tools, and some who, might shy away from those things, and trying to align, those teams with the need is definitely something we're stepping towards.
Yep. Well, I'm very excited for you being at Salisbury Elementary and having, Ms. Yondo and Nicole in your corner can only benefit Salisbury Elementary. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Michael? Go ahead, Paul.
I just have a comment. I applaud you for the 30-minute meeting with each of the educators.
It was very helpful. Nice to begin, certainly, building the relationships, but a really great way to obtain, staff feedback. And I forgot, thank you for asking that, because I forgot to mention the 4th question, which was what makes you the most passionate or excited about your job? And I took, certainly things jumped out. Like this was very plain and obvious from those conversations. But what we did was we put all of their responses copy pasted, right? I recorded, pretty much exactly what they said, and I put that in a word cloud. And if you're unfamiliar, right, the more often a word comes up, the larger it is in the image. And kids was the biggest word in the word cloud, because the number one thing that came up during those conversations was that what makes the staff most passionate or excited about their job are the kids. And so, first of all, right, wonderful. But it really made for a great opening day, with the staff, because we were able to say, we're all here for the same thing, and that's for the kids. So, and I will say the second thing that came up most often was folks' colleagues. So kids and colleagues, and I think that really speaks to the love that the staff has for, certainly the students, their colleagues in the community.
Sorry, I appreciate it's your first time up here, but you don't escape. I always have questions.
It's all good.
So first of all, compliments to both of you, because I set aside 2 hours to go through SIPs this weekend, and I made it through Newbury Elementary's in Pine Grove relatively quickly. And then, I don't know if this was your doing, Erica, but all of the data that was linked in here, I was like, oh, there's another document. Oh, there's another document. And I spent the entire rest of the time on Salisbury Elementary's, and then had to set aside time early this week to go through the middle school and high school ones, just to be able to sort of fully explore what was there, because this is so informational. I feel like just having that background to go through. But I also appreciate just to Paul's point, the 30 minutes, I feel like that was clearly a positive and informational exercise for you. But I have to imagine, just having been through some of those myself on the other side of the desk, that that the thought process that it forces you to go through about your own day-to-day when you're the one answering those questions, that's valuable in itself too. So I appreciate you going through that, because I think it's not just for you, but it was for everyone you sat down and talked to. It's that chance to think things through anew, and what could you do differently, and what's done well, and that type of thing. So I do have a few questions. So one of them was, I heard you talking about implementing new screeners and sort of your data process. Do you feel now, it seems like maybe there was some information that was missing or not being captured in the past. Do you feel like you have that information as you move into future iterations of this, or do you feel like there's going to be, this is going to be an evolution and it's something you're still missing pieces on?
What I think about kind of my priority for what information, right, like thinking ahead to when I'm sitting here next year and reporting out, I think academically, right, we have plentiful data, right, to pull from. And certainly, right, we will continue with the early numeracy screener, the DIBELS, iReady, pulling from all of that. My priority will be the social emotional learning data, and really getting into the nitty-gritty of that with our office referral system. I had mentioned, Jane and I are owning that so that it's collected consistently, so that we really can rely on that data, so we know that what we're collecting and what we're seeing is true to what's in practice, so that we can really make some tweaks. So I do feel like academically we have the information that we need. Certainly there may be some changes in the way we operationalize that and respond to it. I would say that my priority is that kind of social emotional learning data, or even, I guess it would really be more behavioral data that can then inform our social emotional practices.
Can I add one thing to that? Sorry, just because he wasn't there. One of the things that we talked a lot about on the school council last year was in setting these goals, especially the academic goals, we called out that they've had a lot of trackers, a lot of ways of assessing where students are. And again, you see these patterns of students sort of like, you can see it. They fall further and further behind in grade level, and they're in the same school. Every year, what is happening, they've had that data, and so we really pushed. There was a proposal about some school level metrics that came out that were like, hey, we'll have this goal. There was a lot of conversation around, is 20% for the number of students performing at grade level, what's the current number? How many would that be? What is it by grade level? Are those things that you're looking at? And there's words in here that were very intentional. So we put in the word "and" achieving annual typical growth or stretch growth, because we didn't want it to just sit at that 20%, because if they made that exceeded for the lower grades, but those upper grades were still not getting it, we were going to be missing some of that information. So there were a lot of conversations in that group around, you do have a lot of data, but we don't see the results that we're looking for. And so I really appreciate conversations with Mr. Estuccio as he started. He didn't just talk to teachers either. He had his conversation with me was much longer than 30 minutes. But it was great. And I think that it's really exciting to hear that he's making intentional moves to target specific areas, right? The specific grade levels or where the need is, and make sure that there's more going to those kids and those teachers in those grade spans. But the other is really effectively implementing those HQIM, those high quality instructional materials, that the optional tracker, there's tons of resources that go into those curriculum, and that to maximize their use, I think is going to be another data set that will be helpful, something different that they don't already look at.
That is excellent information. Thank you. And I just, when I was first reading through, I thought it was interesting because some of the things that jumped out at me were the growth that's already been made in bringing some of those students up to being at or above grade level, but also looking at how many students are sort of sitting just below. And, you know, who knows how far below that is. Some of them could be right on the cusp. Some of them could be pretty far below. And it's only, you know, 3 data points throughout the year, really. But I was hoping as I was going through to see that included in the goals that were actually coming in this year. So I was really gratified to be able to see that. One of my other questions was, you mentioned the work with the math specialists working across schools. Is that happening with the reading specialists as well?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
The math and reading specialists have all been collaborating with Anna and independently to develop, you know, that consistency between the schools. And, you know, and I think it's really kind of wonderful to see that kind of paying off in our practices. And I did want to just mention quickly, because you had mentioned the kids who are on the cusp and below. I just wanted to be explicit about this too. In a meeting with our Title I coordinator and the reading specialist, you know, they identified this as, you know, a high priority need, that we have these kids who we really need to move that are like, you know, right in that cusp, you know, or you know, just below sort of area, and how do we do that? And that's where that idea around flexible grouping and making that intervention block as efficient as possible was kind of born from.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I mean, looking at last year's data that was included as sort of the background, you can already see that move starting to happen. So I think it would be really exciting if you can just continue to bring those kids up, because I think there's such a psychological component to sort of being on that cusp that you see with students, and just overcoming that. Sometimes it's not even really the academics, it's just having that confidence. When you don't feel like you have that confidence in your skills and you feel like you're bad at something, you know, just getting over that. So it's really nice to see that sort of happening, and I feel like some component of that is already occurring to get you to the point that, you know, we're seeing in here. So I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that has a question for Michael? No?
Okay, I should mention facilities needs. Before I do, I did just want to thank Beth and Brian, because they did support release time in the spring for those conversations with the staff that we've discussed, which was really valuable. So I very much appreciated that, and I know it created some extra work some days for Beth, so apologies and thank you. So if we look at our school facilities needs, the playground is the top priority. Tomorrow we have our first PTA meeting of the year, and so we'll be discussing putting together a sub-playground committee. Unfortunately, the current play structure at SES has been deemed unsafe and is most likely going to need to be torn down. And so what I'm going to be working with the PTA on is kickstarting a group to really begin the process of building a new one. It's important, right, not just as a spot to play, but if we think back to those 5 core competencies of social emotional learning, right, all of those things happen on the playground, and it's students' opportunities to independently practice and socially negotiate self-awareness, self-management, their social awareness, making responsible decisions, and their relationship skills. So it really is a critical component of a school, and so I'm really looking forward to beginning that process with the PTA and any community members and volunteers that will be a part of that. And that certainly will include, you can see, you know, considering the vernal pool and considering the, you know, the safety of that, and ensuring that, you know, our play space for students is a safe place to be. You know, otherwise, you can see there were some concerns noted with the roof, the mold issue, and carpet replacement, but I would say that the kind of big priority at the moment is kickstarting that playground project.
All right, I don't think there's any other questions, so
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael and Erica. See you again soon. All right. Mr. McRae from the middle school.
Hi, everyone. Again, thank you all for your time. I'd like to first off thank Anna Mary Geist, our co-leader of the school council, being with me tonight. I'd also like to thank Tom Abrams, Allison Sherman, our other parent representatives, Ryan McAdams, Nancy Concross, and Chris Estuccio, our teacher reps. And I'd also like to do a little shout out to Tony Evans and Kelly Buckley, our reading and math specialist, for helping out with pulling together data and making it make sense to me and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go to page 5, and we're going to start with just an overview of the goals we had in our last school improvement plan. A few years ago, we put back in place world language in 7th grade. Along with that, we put in some elective classes in science and social studies. Those are firmly in place now. We were able, due to low numbers in French in 8th grade, we were actually able to add a 4th section of, in 7th grade, we do half a year Spanish, half a year French. So only needing 1 section of French in 8th grade, we were able to add 4 sections with that teacher in 7th grade, making the classes a little bit smaller. I am a little concerned about French going forward. This is the first time, I've been principal for a while now, and it's the first time we've only had enough students for French in 1 section in 8th grade. I know that kind of plays off into the high school. We switch things around, so we do French the second half of the year to get kids kind of jazzed up about it, and it's just the appeal of French, for whatever reason, just isn't there right now. And the kids who do opt into it, the other half of the class or so, our kids just did not give us a choice. They were indifferent about it. We just put them in French to fill up the numbers. So that's a little bit concerning going forward and how that will impact the high school. One other wrinkle to these classes this year is we've been able to pull on 1 day out of the cycle out of these classes. We've talked to the teachers and worked this all out. Mr. Roberts, our music teacher, is taking kids as groups of instruments, trumpets, trombones, whatever, and giving a lesson. So every student in the band that's able to do this gets a lesson 1 day in the 6-day cycle, and it's not impacting that class. So we're going to keep an eye on that and watch how that goes, but it's been going well so far. The next goal was about implementing 3 special ed programs in the middle school, our REACH program, our Essentials program, and our TLC program. Those are firmly in place. The REACH program this year, we were able to add a full-time counselor just working at the middle school. That's helped a lot with continuity. I've already seen that have some good dividends. Having Julie Benson in the middle school full-time. We have a number of kids in the REACH program. We have a couple of kids on referral to the REACH program. The Essentials program has 8th graders, presently no 7th graders, but there are, I'm hearing a couple of referrals being discussed. So if you build it, they will come. I think we'll probably fill that up a little bit. In our TLC program, we have 1 true TLC student. Next year, I understand there'll be a couple more. What we do with the teacher of that program, he's also trained in Orton Gillingham, so he has a caseload of students that he, I think it's 5 8th graders, 4 7th graders that he has, and he falls around classes and he does Orton Gillingham instruction with them every day. So we're filling up his schedule as well. We've also added a second intervention class. Last year, our math and English reading specialists both had 1 intervention class. And these are kids that we identify coming up from 6th grade who are, I think, like Michael was talking about, kind of on the cusp, might be a grade level or 2 below. They're not otherwise identified on a plan. And we are able to get small classes together, and they get some direct instruction every day, and we were able to double that. So I'm happy to say that. Our third goal was on written language. And if you remember, we put this goal together and the data points were kind of slim. We had a couple of questions on MCAS, and we were able to meet that goal, but it also got us thinking about, how are we assessing writing in the middle school? So you'll see as I get into our new goals, we've kind of expanded on that. Our reading specialist has been, starting last year, reviewing the MCAS essay questions that the students have done. She's able to print them out from the previous year and to sit down with a student and have them look at their essay that they wrote and go over it with them. Some of them are like 2 lines. It's pretty jarring for the student. Like, I don't think, a lot of them don't think they're ever going to see that again, and when they have to see it again, I think it's kind of, we're trying to get that momentum about writing back, and that's one of the steps we're taking going forward. So I'll get into the writing goal when I get into the new goal. Our last goal, our fourth goal in our last plan was math, and it was focused on statistics and probability, or measurement and data, depending on which assessment you're talking about. Again, we put that together. We were able to reach that. We kept it as a focus last year. One of the models we've been using is our math specialist has set up a Google Classroom for the entire middle school, and during Flex, students are working on kind of extension activities in math that were about statistics and probability. We've also started last year, we added in some other concepts such as number sense, maybe some geometry. And we're going to continue to do that. We also have been doing data chats about iReady. Those have had a lot of purpose in that the kids are developing goals for themselves, and it's getting them a little bit more engaged in the process of taking the iReady test, because especially when you talk about 8th grade, there's a lot of assessment at the end of 8th grade, and I think some of the data we saw last year for our 8th graders showed us that when you're taking 4 different MCAS tests with the addition of civics, and then you got to kind of squeeze iReady in there before school gets out, and you got a trip to Washington, and you got an April vacation in there, and we got another 50 kids that had to take the NEEP testing from the federal government, so there was a lot going on there, and I think it did have an impact on our 8th grade scores when it came to iReady. So we've done some changes, and we're moving iReady up a little bit this year. Hopefully that'll help get a more genuine response. So flipping over to new goals, our first math goal is by June 2025, 7% of the 7th and 8th grade students will achieve a typical growth of 100% on Math iReady diagnostic from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Our numbers last year, 7th and 8th grade, were in the low to mid 60%. We feel like 70% is achievable, and would like to see it go over 70%. We will be continuing doing the data chats. We have added the additional intervention class, as I mentioned. Again, these are students that are not otherwise identified on any kind of IEP or anything. And we're going to continue that math Google Classroom work during Flex for all the students. We're also piloting a new curriculum, so I'm going to be interested to see how that impacts these kind of things. Our second goal is on writing. As I said, what came out of the last school improvement plan and our writing goal was the fact that we didn't really have a real solid way of assessing our writing. So through the new curriculum and through the new modules that the teachers will be teaching, we've developed some module guidance working with our consultant, and in that they've identified some benchmark writing assessments in each module. So each module throughout the year, the students will do a benchmark and then a summative writing piece. So there'll be three different baseline tests throughout the year. That will give us the data that we're looking for. And to anticipate the question, Larissa, I know that the goal 2 and goal 3, which I'll talk about in a minute, are very much about establishing some baseline data that we don't have. We know there's a problem, we need to fix, we need to get some assessment data. So that's a lot about what these 2 goals are about. So we're going to be using the MCAS rubric, which is a 5-point scale. So we'll be doing that first benchmark soon, and we'll see where kids fall on that rubric. And our hope is that if they're 1s and 2s, by the end of the year, they're 3 and 4s. So this time next year, I'll be able to say this is our numbers, and this is the data we collected, and we did this great, we fell a little short here, whatever, but I'll have much better data on these things next year. And it'll also be something we can combine with the MCAS data as far as having more data points. Our third goal, and I think which is probably the most important goal, because if we can pull this one off and get this going in a positive direction, I think it'll impact the other 2 goals as much as anything. By June 2025, Triton Middle School will improve students' sense of community, belonging, and caring as measured by various surveys throughout the year. We had a good meeting this morning with the Search Institute, who's going to be doing some PD for us in October and then again in January. And we talked about measurability, and because it's this kind of thing's a little bit abstract, depending on who you talk to. A kid can say, yeah, I feel like I belong, but how do you measure that? So they have some tools that we're going to be using. On the first couple PD days, I had all my staff do a teacher efficacy self-assessment of them, how they teach, how they handle classroom. That tool breaks things down to student engagement, instructional strategies, and classroom management, and they get a score in each one. So I have that. I will give that to them again at the end of the year, because I want to see how all the professional development we're doing along those lines impacts them in the classroom and thus impacts their students. We're putting this together because we've seen observationally the anxiety levels of students have gone up, the attentional issues have gone up, overall dysregulation in the classroom has gone up, and the complaints I get from teachers is I just don't know how to keep him in the room. He needs to use the bathroom, he needs to go to the nurse, she needs to go down and see the guidance counselor. So we feel like some of these strategies about how you better deal with those type of situations in classrooms are going to help keep those kids in class, and it also will help keep the teacher's attention on the entire class more than that 1 or 2 kids that might be having a difficult time that day. Sorry, I'm looking very dry. We have a number of things that we do throughout the year, team building things that we do every year, the middle school madness, those kind of things. We're going to be using the the student council this year as more of a leadership group to talk to and get feedback about goings on in the building. We're trying to get a good cross-section of the middle school from both grades, all 4 teams on the school council, student council. So everybody's represented. I'm in the process of changing my office, my conference room that I've used, into a more teacher resource room and meeting room, so teachers have a place to go and meet with parents, meet with each other, just sit there and plan. They have a TV in there that can project things on, and putting up a whiteboard, just something that will give them some, a place to go that's get them out of their team area. I'm really pushing to have team meetings in there too, so that I can eavesdrop and drop in on them when I need to. We also have a empty classroom, which we've never had, and Assistant Principal Monjo is working with the TEF to turn it into what she's going to call the cool corner, which will be just kind of a fun room. We've surveyed all the kids. We're getting feedback from them about what they'd like to see in a room like that. There might be some tactile type things. There might be some makerspace type things. We brought a couple of representatives from TEF through the other day, and we did some just some looking around, painting, that kind of stuff. So we're going to give them a good idea of what we'd like, and they're happy to put some money forward for that. So I want to just take a quick look at all 3. Yeah, I should just mention also, we tapped into our own staff about professional development on the first couple days of PD this year. Kate Eaton is very skilled in working with kids on the spectrum, kids that are dysregulated. She's phenomenal. The teachers really enjoyed the information she was sharing with them. It was pretty impactful stuff for me, too. She's very vulnerable about her own thing and very, very engaging with the teachers. We've had some special ed people and Julie Benson talk about working with those type of students, dysregulated students, kids that might have that reach profile, how they act in class and how they react to things. So again, by the end of the year, I'm hoping to have a good sense of where kids are and how they're feeling about the school and the teachers in the school, and hope that, again, shows itself in the other two goals as well. Brian calls me a minimalist, so here I am. Beth, how quick was I? Anyways, that's our goals. I'm much better just answering questions and getting conversational. I apologize for running through this, but I'm sure there are questions. So I do have one building physical plant thing that I talk about, but other than that, I'll take questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Caitlin.
You mentioned students leaving the classroom. That is super loud. Do you have data to support, like, more along the... I don't... It's so stressful.
That's more than 12 inches.
But you're not supposed to move.
Yes, we have, like, I think your question about do we have data on, like, kids leaving the classroom?
Yes, thank you.
So we have, our student services people have logs where kids come and go. Our nurse has logs where kids come and go. Most of it's legitimate stuff. Most of it for us is bathroom use. I walk through the hall and go, didn't I just see you last period walking to the bathroom? And some of it is just they need a motor break, and we need to identify that, and we need to plan that. And we started doing that last year with some of the kids that really came to the surface. We had some pretty significant damage in our bathrooms, so we closed down the eighth grade bathrooms for a big part of the year. And it was funny when we put a teacher outside of our bathrooms and had kids log in and log out, and they were timed and everything else, the bathroom visits went right down. So it's about monitoring that, but to have people to do that period in, period out, it's not that easy. You have to. We were sitting out there, the assistant principal was sitting out there. I'd find anybody I could to go sit out there. So we want to get it to the point where the kids are monitoring themselves, and identifying for themselves and advocating for themselves that, I just need to go walk for a minute. It's fine. You can do that. You don't have to make an excuse.
That's where I was going with it, like how much of it is part of that motor break, anxiety, need to disassociate from whatever situation they're in versus I actually need to use the bathroom. And I wasn't sure if that was able to be tracked, putting humans everywhere, but just I wasn't sure if that was part of your surveys or part of what you were looking into as...
We are going to start, we track office referrals. We honestly, to be honest, we don't have a lot of office referrals. It's usually the same kind of, and these are the kind of kids I'm talking about. They just can't sit still or whatever, and they get disruptive, and you need to go to the office because I can't teach right now. So I don't think it's those individual kids, but those individual kids have a very big impact on the other kids in classes. So if we can minimize the disruption with them and get them in a good place, everything else kind of eases up and is better for everybody else, including the teachers. Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I think I have more comments than questions, but I think the one question I do have, and maybe this goes to what you just said to Caitlin, was I was wondering about discipline as a component of your social emotional goal, because to some degree it does play in. So my understanding is you don't have a lot of data on that because you're not.
Yeah, I don't feel like we need to have a tracking thing for kids getting sent to that, because it really, if you came and sat in the office all day, you would see it. There's not, there was one kid I think that sent out of class today, and that's the usual thing. Yeah, and that kid was just having a really bad afternoon. When the kids get to the middle school, they have got into a routine, like a lot of kids will come from 6th grade and they used to go see Miss Golden or something like that, and they know they can go see Miss Salvatore. And a lot of those we understand, and those, it's a kid that goes, I need to go to the bathroom, and then they end up in the nurse's office, because that just killed 10 minutes of his math class that he really doesn't want to be in. Those are the kind of kids we're trying to, or the kids that, when the teacher turns around, he gets up and jumps over and sits in a different seat to get next to his buddy, and then the teacher has to redirect him, and then now we're off topic for a while. Those kind of things are what teachers come to me and say, I just don't, or the kid that just shuts down and won't pick up the pencil and work. What do we do with those kind of kids? So we're trying to encourage that belonging and that feeling of you're in a safe place. We're not the enemy. We're here to help you. What can we do for you? So that's what we're trying to do, and we're doing that in our assemblies. If you ever hear Ms. Monjo speak, she talks to the kids, and she calls them our family. She talks in those kind of terms, and goes through stuff like Title IX and bullying and stuff, but does it in a way that it's supportive, and we're not telling you this stuff because we want to get you in trouble. We're telling you this stuff so you stay away from it, and this is what you can face if you get into those kind of things. So, and we're all in this together. We need to all pull the boat in the same direction, and those kind of messages. And we do that every quarter. And we might go over a big, some kind of incident that might have happened. We went over like bathroom vandalism last year a couple times. The only bathrooms we got, it's an old building. We're not going to get new ones. And it did. We had one student, unfortunately, that was responsible for a lot of it. And but other than that, we did see it tailed off quite a bit towards the end of the year. So.
I think that's probably the difference between being sort of outside of what you're experiencing and you being inside what you're experiencing is the incidents are the ones that we are always hearing about. So it seems like there's probably more discipline issues than you're actually dealing with, just based on, kind of the emails that come home about, there was damage. It's that sort of outside perception.
Probably pretty quickly get the numbers on that. I would say 100% of the damage is done by probably 3% of the kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a small percentage of the kids. And the other thing, we work on a lot with middle school kids because they don't want to be quote unquote rats, is, if you see something, say something because it's to your benefit. If if I have to close down a bathroom, you're walking a whole lot further to use it. So you're not getting anybody in trouble. It's about just, taking care of your building, taking care of your school, and having, amenities for people that need to use them. But, developmentally, they don't quite see that. But, it dawns on them eventually when they get in high school. They always come back and they apologize. Say, you're right.
I think this goes to the sort of what's happening on the outside, what we're seeing on the goals side versus probably what's happening inside the way the teachers are functioning in the school. But I just have to say it's really nice to see the shift this year of you going from an MCAS like single data point late in the year, beyond, sort of the plannable point where by the time you've got it, you're so far behind in reacting that it makes it hard, to you moving towards these data points for your goals that are multiple, points of data throughout the year. There's something that presumably you're getting back really quickly, like you're getting that information back quickly, so it is actionable throughout the year. I'm sure that was going on, but it's nice to see sort of the focus come there around your goals. And then on your belonging goal, I just want to shout this out because it's something I've said in school committee meetings a couple of times, but the feedback that I heard, having a 7th grader myself this year, about bringing the 6th graders in small groups over for their one day here at the middle school, that was so huge last year. I heard from parents who were just so excited, and kids, that their kids had the chance to come here. It dispelled all that, like, what happens at lunch? How do they have a recess? Like, what are the classes like? They're going to be 3 hours long. They're going to be so hard that we're not going to be able to do it. And it was the end of the year, at the point that it was hit it, and I think the kids could still see that they had some grasp on the material when they were coming in here. And I think, not for nothing, but the sixth grade teachers a lot of times have this idea of what middle school looks like, and it's so much harder than I think I hear from middle schoolers that, there is fun in middle school, right? It's still happening. It's this very interactive, relaxed, not this lecture hall thing that I think the kids sometimes come in picturing. And it was really nice for them to be able to come through that in these small, very manageable groups where a lot of them felt like they had familiar faces from other kids from their school. They were meeting you on the minibuses. They were meeting teachers on a minibus, Ms. Maggio on a minibus. They had a face. It was a personal connection that they felt there. I talked to one parent who said her son was late in the process, and he had some, she could see his anxiety ramping up as people were talking about middle school through the spring. And his first group of friends sort of came here for one of the early days, and then another group of friends came in, and she could see every time that it would step back for him. And by the time he actually made it here himself, it was almost gone just from his friends having had that experience. Every trip, it stepped back. And I just think that is such a huge thing, because those kids did feel, I think, like they could come here and this was very doable for them, and they had a sense of familiarity already. And I think that is huge, and I know that's not in your goals, but I think it goes towards your goals. And it was
Part of
something,
it, yeah.
you
Every
did last
5
year.
years or
It was
so,
just-
I get a good idea, and that was one of them. I'm good for next 5, so.
It's in there, we'll check the box.
No, we have some thoughts on how we're going to do it this year, a little,
Yeah.
as far as we're going to try to track special ed kids so they're on the team that they hopefully be on, that kind of thing, so they can see the teachers and special ed teachers and all that. I think that's doable. It's all about numbers in the homerooms in the 6th grade and how they fit in the van and all that, so a little logistics there. But yeah, I enjoy doing that. I heard when you're driving a van, kids don't think you're there, and they just talk. And I was listening, and I was just laughing about how did you have that teacher in science? Did you? And how they talk about them, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. So that was enjoyable for us too. So I'm glad that had some impact.
Yeah, no, kudos to you, because I think that was, of all the sort of transitional anxiety that we've all been aware of as happening over the years, that went worlds. And I think the one almost regret that I have is that it happens at the end of 6th grade, when we have some students that are leaving us leave already, and they don't have that experience earlier, because I think if they had it, it would be maybe make a change in their life to stay in the middle school rather than looking at alternatives, just having had that experience. So thank you.
All right. Yeah, we're going to start with 5th grade next week.
Does anybody else have any questions for? And I think it was great seeing you and Mr. Kelly at all the 6th grade celebrations as well. I think that makes it.
A lot of use out of that speech. Yeah.
I just think it makes a huge difference for people to see that the middle and high school are there as well, seeing as that's their next journey in their careers. To me, I just think it's great to see that all the elementary schools, as well as the middle and high school, are all working together as to what is in the best interest of our students.
Yeah, you had a question from Michael, I think it was about the kids that in 6th grade, they're below grade level. Our math and reading specialists work very closely with the elementary ones at the end of the year, and they put together lists, and we have a slow-paced math class, what kids are qualifying for that, who should be in that, who's going to be in these intervention classes, so all that stuff's done by the end of the year. So we have a pretty good read and try to get as many of those kids extra help, whatever that is needed. So we are aware of those kids during those transition time, during that transition.
I think that's great to hear. And I mean, all of you have been here through all of our school improvement plans and how hard I am on the Salisbury principals. But again, as to what Erica was saying is this is the sixth grade, 51% of those kids are below grade level. How did they get to 51% at sixth grade?
Right.
So that's just the things that we have to make sure aren't happening. It's one thing if they're special ed students and are struggling, but if they're just kids who've fallen through the cracks over the years, that's where I have a problem as a
Right.
school committee member, that we didn't track them properly. So it just worries me as they get up to the middle school and the high school, being behind, it's a lot tougher to close that gap.
Sure. The only thing I had to say about the building, this building's well documented. We get a lot of complaints about the heat on the third floor. We get very creative with fans. If you were there for locker night, you felt that heat. The one thing I was talking about somewhere recently is there a possibility of somehow getting like drapes or something in the foyer? Because it's a beautiful space with a lot of glass, but when the sun bakes in there and it heats it up, you can't get rid of that heat. So I didn't know if, that would be something I would look into, is, some kind of curtain or something that could come down to block that heat. But that might be cost prohibitive as well. But that was just a thought I had recently, so I thought I'd throw it out there.
I want to thank all of you for, what you do. I know some days are harder than others, but it takes a village to do everything that you guys do, and we as a school committee appreciate all that you guys do. So
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al and Anna Mary. And last but not least, do you want to take a 5-minute break? We literally almost lost your quorum. Maybe we take a 5-minute break.
Be offended, Patrick, that everybody got up when you came here.
right, I've turned my mic on. I think that's the sign. You got it, everybody. Ready?
Okay, you're up.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Patrick Kelly. I'm the principal of the high school. With me, I've got Erica Champagne, who's the co-chair, and back up at the podium. She's got the most time at the table this evening. Other members of our school council that I want to thank for their participation: Matt Haley, Heather Walter, Jill Lewis, Danielle Perkins, and Kate Rio, all teachers at the high school, and parents Frank DeLisi, Jane White, and Hillary Lind. So thank you for our efforts and work both this year and for most of that group over the last several years. Just to start, I wanted to highlight on some of the work that took place over the past year on the 4 different goals that we had in place. So our first goal previously was having more consistency in the curriculum. Over the past year, we focused significantly on increasing the amount of consistency in the essential questions being used within classrooms, both within across departments and then across specific course strands. And that work around essential questions is kind of a precursor and first step to some of the writing work that we're going to be doing this year to have a more aligned approach. We had additional courses that were being run. So our AP Psychology course is a significant addition that was added in, and one that in year 1 of implementation, we saw really great results for our students. We tracked ahead of both state and national averages in terms of our student success rate on that AP Psychology test. That course in specific is one that I think is really important because it's a course that gets more students involved in upper level coursework, which is something that we're actively trying to focus on, wanting to move more students through, again, our advanced level courses. In our social studies department, there was significant work that took place over the past calendar year on improving and building out their civics action project. That's something that we're going to be adjusting slightly this coming year, moving it from a 2-year implementation. This will be the first year of it going into exclusively in the junior year. And so we're really working on making sure that there's a consistent thread. One of the things that was challenging having it spread over 2 years was that one teacher was starting a lot of the work and then trying to hand it off to another teacher, but based on the number of different teachers that could have been teaching the previous year and students who might have been partnered with someone else, you might have had students trying to partner with someone in another class that somebody else was teaching, and it had a lot of hands and moving pieces in the project. And so we're trying to kind of tighten it up and have a little bit more consistency across it, but also find more ways for our students to be actively involved within our both school and local community. For our students, learning about civics, their worldview is much narrower than ours might be, and the places where they want to see their civic action is typically local. For some, school is the community they know best, and for others, they might be able to expand that out into the immediate towns or in a couple cases across the state, but for the most part, it's a much narrower view of what we're looking at. One of the other places that we had significant work over the past calendar year around increasing consistency in the curriculum is in our mathematics department. One of the places that Anna has helped to really spearhead and lead is around our math curriculum review. And that review process, one of the outcomes of that is a pilot of new math curriculum 7 through Algebra 2 that's taking place this year, and that's something that's really essential. And I think as we look at some of the inconsistencies in student experience, kind of transitioning from the middle school into the high school, that we've identified and recognized some of it comes through inconsistent resources that have been used and varying approaches based on those resources. So having increased consistency is going to be something that's really important. Additionally, last year, we were able, based on staffing and what we had available, unfortunately, we don't have the same budget for it this year. We were able to have our freshman math classes, or multiple of our freshman math classes, be co-taught with 2 math teachers. And so it was able to really provide additional intervention that I'm excited to see how that group that's now sophomores was able to hopefully catch up a little bit more quickly. This year, one of the things that we have been able to do, however, that's kind of a different type of intervention, building off of that, is to have our math program coordinator have one of her periods of the day doing additional support, mathematics support, in our academic support classrooms. So we've identified a couple of cohorts of students that are in our freshman and sophomore grades who need additional math support, and we're doing, it's a push into academic support, which is a little bit different. So a general ed push into academic support, which is kind of different than what you might have typically seen in other places, and we want to test that as an intervention. For our second goal, so it's improving instructional strategies to support social emotional learning. We had a number of different initiatives that took place last year. One of the kind of most visible and most fun was our Wellness Day that took place in March, where students signed up for various teacher-developed wellness-related experiences. Some of them were with direct learning. Some of them were fun. Kids did everything from learning how to make lip balm and products out of the beeswax that we're collecting from our beehives, to rollerblading with the principal, to any number of different things. But it was a really kind of fun experience and change of pace for the day. We also brought back our SBIRT screening, and we're able to partner with Mass General Hospital to bring in a health coach who's here 2 days a week. The grant that's paying for that health coach is moving through this year, which is really helpful to have an additional resource that's helping us track some of those, that decision-making and risky behavior. Around the room, one of the things that you hopefully have noticed is a reorganization of our library catalog, and so you can see the different groupings that are around the room. And we had students from our applied math class work with Ms. Jones, both to help identify some of the groupings, but also how many books can fit on a shelf and how to organize them so that they can be most visible for our students. And even in the first few weeks of school, we've seen a significant uptick in circulation as a result of it. And so we're really excited about some of how that has played out. Additionally, one of the other initiatives and some of the other work that's being done, not just at the high school but across the district, is collaborating with the Salisbury Youth Coalition to focus on the needs of our students both here in the schools but also in the community. And that work has been really meaningful thus far. And Al talked a little bit about the Search Institute coming in. That's through direct partnership with Tina Luce, who has been helping to facilitate that Salisbury Youth Coalition. Our third goal was looking at student engagement in the community. One of the greatest efforts that we put in over the past calendar year has been the increased focus on our MyCap programming. So MyCap is My Career and Academic Plan. So it's a program that is through the Department of Ed that really focuses students on having their own individualized plan for what they want to do both in school and when they've finish school. Last year, we ran for our sophomores, that was our first target group, a career exploration week, and then also on top of that career exploration week, they had a research component that they had to do to align some of the work that they were doing in their guidance seminar around their interest inventory and future plans to then match up with the careers that they most wanted to explore during our career exploration week. So really something that was new that is being developed out currently for our freshmen, juniors, and seniors. So during this calendar year, we're looking to expand our offerings. So for our upperclassmen, they're looking to do a second level of their individualized career inventories that they've looked at and kind of built that out further, and then also really focus in on resume writing, LinkedIn profiles, and mock interviews. So we want all of our seniors, by the time they leave us, to have a really well-developed resume, to have their own LinkedIn profile that they've posted in, and also that they've been practicing their interview skills, whether that's for college interviews or future job interviews, but looking to collaborate both with our educators in the building and also the employers that we have regularly coming through the high school. Some of the other programming, just to make note of, that goes into some of that community engagement, our National Honor Society and community service groups, again, really kind of highlighted all that's good with our communities in the amount of service hours that they completed and in the programming that they ran. We were recognized by the Salvation Army for our bell ringing campaign. We've got our Sunday night meals programming that is really wonderful, but our students again and again are kind of amazing us with the amount of time that they give of themselves and how much they're willing to give within the community. And I think part of what we've seen with the growth of our internship program is students wanting to find places where they can make meaningful contributions and connect with other members within our community. Our fourth goal was looking at a number of different things, but really kind of focused in on really was kind of focusing in on the academic growth for all students. And so we looked specifically at how we were supporting, in a lot of the work we've done in the last year, students around their math classes and math courses. We had put in place prior to the MCAS last spring, math intervention group that ran for 12 weeks with our students. They were described before as being on the cusp. I forget who was talking about it, whether it was Michael or Al, but we had identified from 7th and 8th grade iReady scores as well as MCAS scores, a cohort of students that were tracking as though they would be students that, given a push, would be successful on their math MCAS, but without the push, it would be kind of a toss-up whether or not they would pass. And we utilized our Viking block to provide intervention with that group 3 times a week for that 12-week period, and found success with them. So that was something we were really excited about. Although I can't specifically talk to success rate with that yet, but felt like that was a healthy intervention. We continue to expand course offerings. I talked a little bit before about the AP Psychology, but also our sustainability course and environmental chemistry, really looking at upper level electives and wanting our students to have more courses in which they were pushing themselves academically. And then lastly, and this was something that has to be included in the school improvement plan for NEASC, and we added that in, but continuing to submit a statement of interest on the building project to the MSBA. I do feel like the building has an impact on student learning, and the more that we can do to facilitate, hopefully, a building project here on the middle school, high school campus, the better, because I do think that that has a significant impact on our students, their experience during the day, and how they feel about learning at Triton. In terms of MCAS scores, so these are the 2023 MCAS scores in terms of looking at some of the student data. So our ELA MCAS scores had stayed relatively stagnant, although our student growth percentile was a little bit lower than what we had hoped for that class during the 2023 year. Our math scores jumped significantly. You'll remember last year I was talking about in every cohort within that, we made progress or exceeded the progress that was expected of us. And so that was a significant jump that was really kind of exciting at that point in time. And then our science scores for the, what are our current, sorry, I'm trying to track back the years. What are our current sophomores? No, current juniors. Current juniors were slightly below where we had hoped they would be. And I'll be looking forward to sharing and hearing about the data presentations when they come out. One of the areas that we tracked a lot of data around over the past year is our local attendance data. It's really important for us to make sure our students are here and here consistently. Looking at the data going from the March SIMS report to the March SIMS report. So when we have to submit data at 3 different points in time in the year. What's currently available for public consumption through the state is the March data. And so looking at March data versus March data, we improved by 4.5% with our chronic absentee rate. So that data is not yet where we want it to fully be, but knowing that there's a 4.5% improvement is something that I think is commendable. Where we saw the greatest level of difference was with our students who were not our students with disabilities and who were not our students of low-income status. So our students that that fit into what that majority group was. And so our next step is really looking at those targeted groups, our students with disabilities and our students of low-income status, and trying to make sure we're moving the needle for them as well. So those two groups in specific, their data stayed relatively similar year over year, and we're wanting to make sure that that group moves as well, because when we look at our, and you heard me say this last year, when we look at our MCAS data, when we look at our student class success rate, whether that's our failure reports that we run every quarter, our groups that struggle the most academically are also our groups that are of low-income status, our students with disability, and our students who struggle to attend school most frequently. So the intermingling of those factors is where we really want to start moving the needle. But in year one, to be able to move our attendance data by 4.5% is, I think, commendable. And then also, I had shared vocal data. So our local vocal, or not local, our vocal data, which is the views of climate and learning. That's the state data that we use to kind of track student feelings of connectedness to the school. Is something that is really important. The areas that you'll see come up later in the school improvement plan directly connected to this. Students feeling like they're connected to the work that they're doing in their classroom, so that their assignments interest them personally in at least 2 of their academic classes. And then also this level of complexity involving the work. So in my academic classes, students wrestle with problems that don't have obvious answers, and so wanting students to feel like there's both complexity and meaning for them are two kind of crucial factors to them seeing that school has high value for them. The other place that we're really looking at focusing in on is students feeling as though that they have a place that they belong after the school day. So our involvement rates in our clubs and activities, one of the things that Brian was able to help with this year, Brian Perry, not Brian Forget, but was making sure that we got an additional day of late buses so that we could be able to have a third day in the week that we can run some of our clubs and activities that students then have access to get home for at the end of the school day. That's something that really has a lot of meaning and value to our students and to our community, but wanting to increase our participation rates because we know that students who are connected outside of the school day become more connected during the school day. So that's just a quick review of some of the data. So we have 3 different goals for the year. We have an academic goal, a social-emotional learning goal, and our attendance goal. Do you want to talk for a minute about the academic goal and where the conversation went through school council?
Do I want to?
Yes.
I do. Hold on.
I can start.
You can start. I'll try.
Okay, so where we landed with our first goal, so our academic goal, was around focusing in on student writing and looking at some of the data sets that we've seen through MCAS and then anecdotal data that we've had from teachers kind of on a year-over-year basis is that one of our areas of greatest academic weakness is around student writing. And wanting students both to write more, to be more confident writers, to be more precise writers, to have the ability to use some of the tools at their disposal more effectively and more efficiently. And so that's something that has been kind of an ongoing discussion at the high school for a while. Do you want to step in and then I'll pick up?
Part of the discussion, I have to say, I really appreciate the teachers that are on the school council that are really open to new ideas and suggestions or pushing from even some of the other parents in the room were like, there would be some, ideas on the table that sort of maybe felt a little safer to them. Like, what if we just do it for our content area? We'd do a writing assignment, it would look like X, and we would evaluate it. And I think that Patrick did a really good job sort of trying to help say, this is all of our responsibility at the high school, and there are resources that we even dug into, like MCAS prompts, and there was even some like calibration across even content areas of knowing what's expected in ELA sort of MCAS writing prompt. And so it was really, I think, a good strategy that's laid out here is to just like, let's work on this for everyone and set the same standard across the whole school. And so that was a good product of lots of discussion on setting this goal over the course of the year.
But wanting it to really focus and have those as our measurable points, because the places where our scores probably lag more than where we want is specifically in those writing prompts. And so wanting to make sure that that's writing in general is the goal, is where we're going to try to focus some of our efforts, but knowing that we want the measurability piece to be focused specifically on outcomes there. So similar to what you've heard with some of the other goals, we're looking to do early in the year, so we're going to be doing it in October, pre-assessment of student writing for some of our English classes. They're already doing benchmark writing. Having a mid-year writing assessment and an end-of-year writing assessment at each of those intervals, doing data analysis with the students. We've started doing some of the data analysis from last year's writing prompts with MCAS and looking at where students fell and why they fell where they fell and what the missing components in our instruction are, but wanting to then work within departments to identify common look-fors. So in an English class, this is what we're looking for. That shouldn't change for a social studies class. There are going to be things that might be social studies specific that they want to look for, but what are the consistent components that we want all freshmen to be able to do? What are the consistent components that we want all sophomores to be able to do? And move that through each of the grade levels. And one of the places that the group struggled with was initially they wanted around a communication goal. So in a theater class, it could be about presentational speech. And I think where we landed was that regardless of domain, we want students to be able to write for context. And that's something that's really kind of an important and foundational skill that needs to be pushed and prioritized. The second goal was around social emotional learning and increasing our participation rates. We just talked about those 2 data points from our vocal data. So looking to increase the ownership of the learning experience and engagement in the school community. To accomplish this, we'll increase the percentage of students wanting to participate in extracurricular activities from 89 to 93% as measured by the vocal survey. And we'll also increase the number of students who respond that in at least 2 of their academic classes, they're able to work on assignments that interest them personally from 61 to 68%. Those being kind of really meaningful data points because we want, again, our students to be participating in the offerings that we have and to feel like the offerings that we have throughout the school day are meaningful to them and to their learning. I think we've all had the experience of students coming home and saying, nope, I didn't learn anything, or I'm not excited about what I'm doing, and so wanting them to feel like they're lighting up. And so especially for the experiences in terms of engagement within the school community, wanting to increase awareness, wanting to increase the usage of some of our data tracking, so wanting to look at our rosters for clubs and activities and track those against our sports participation so that we can have rosters of who's participating across the school and who is not participating across the school, and then have kind of targeted interventions with those students to say, why don't we get you to try X, Y, or Z? What else are you doing outside of school that maybe we could bring into the school? What are the things that we have available that might interest you? And if there's nothing yet that interests you, what might we be able to bring in, and who else might we want to partner with to make that happen? And so especially with our incoming freshmen being for those that are currently here, and then for those coming up from 8th grade next year, wanting to be much more visible with what our offerings are. We're looking to get more into like our various parent nights, and we've looked at moving our 8th grade parent night up as early as December, because we know that when students are starting to make decisions about what they're looking at for schooling at the next level, if they're looking at private schools, it's in December and January that they're starting to make those decisions. So trying to move that up, and at those events have representatives from all of our clubs and activities in athletic departments, so that families can see all the offerings that are here for their children. One of the other groups that we've identified we want to do more to support around, and this is something that Mr. Celia, one of the assistant principals, is taking on, is our newcomers group. So students that are new to Triton High School that haven't previously been in district, and wanting that group of students to make sure that they have, one, an established community within that newcomers group, but then also to have kind of a early knowledge of who the resources are, how to get involved, and where the inroads might be for them, so that they immediately feel connected. And so they're having kind of ongoing biweekly meetings during lunch, and trying to kind of check in and make sure that they're all feeling like this is a place that they belong. In terms of the second portion, so students responding that at least in at least 2 of their academic classes, they're able to work on assignments that are of interest and that are personally of interest to them. So we are starting to survey our students about that specific data point now. And then we'll be also conducting ongoing meetings with our students, with various cohorts of our students throughout the year to track whether or not that's something that they are continuing to feel like is an area where school is not of interest, and then looking to give teachers the data from their specific student rosters so they can see, here are my students, here are the areas that they're identifying of interest. Are there ways that those areas of interest can align within my curriculum? When we're designing projects that are more open-ended, are there ways for them to construct that within their domain? So if the content is fixed, but the product is open in terms of what the teacher is offering for students to be able to do to show their learning. Could a student demonstrate their learning through music? Could they demonstrate it through video production? Could they demonstrate it in a way that they find personally meaningful and interesting, while also presenting the necessary content information? So there are different ways that we're working on that with faculty. Lastly, our third goal is looking at the attendance rate. And so we're looking to get our chronic absentee rate under 19%. That would be a really lofty move, and it's where we want to be. And so we talked about what an appropriate number was for that, and decided that we'd rather put the number at something that we think might be slightly past our grasp, but that is where we actually wanted to be versus something that felt a little bit safer. And so some of what we've already started to do this year is really focus in on our students that struggled with their attendance last year and put in place attendance intervention plans. We started this over the summer with having families come in who had chronically absent students for the 23-24 school year to put those plans in place. As part of those plans, we're looking at root cause analysis. So we're trying to determine whether the root cause is aversion, barriers, disengagement, or misconceptions. So Attendance Works is an organization that kind of has a really good handle on how to get students, how to move that group of chronically absent students, and they've got a wealth of resources that are starting to be looked at both at the high school and then will be used, I'm assuming, with the attendance committee across the district, but those models are really meaningful. We've also put in place a daily attendance tracker that is pulling our attendance data on a daily or weekly basis and updating it so we can see which students are chronically absent in the immediacy. So the spreadsheet that was built out, and Liz Pacheco, one of the assistant principals, built it out, and then Greg Kulowick has helped her even refine it further. But it gives us kind of up-to-date tracking on each of our students, the number of school days that they've been in attendance. They're all color-coded so that you can see who is trending towards chronic absenteeism, who is currently chronically absent. We've got last year's data next to it, so we're able to kind of see in real time where we are with those numbers, and we're not waiting for the SIMS reporting to come out to have a clear understanding of where we are and what we're doing. Additionally, we're going to continue messaging with the community and also look to conduct school-wide quarterly celebrations when we meet our attendance goals. So when our students are here, we have fewer than 19% chronically absent in a quarter, we're going to be looking to conduct celebrations, and for our students that are doing great with their absences, we want to make sure that we're celebrating those things because helps build a culture where being here and present in school matters. I think this goal, in large part, links to our social emotional learning goal. So students feeling like the work that they're doing here is relevant, feeling like they'll be missed if they aren't attending their environmental club meeting after school, that they'll be missed if they're not part of their journalism class and their article's not in on time, feeling like the work that they're doing is meaningful not just for themselves, but for others within their classes and within the school is really important. And so I do think that social emotional learning goal and our attendance goal are in large part directly linked. I didn't put a section in for facility needs. We're currently going through the MSBA process. I think Al said he had one facility request, and I thought he was going to say tongue-in-cheek it was the whole building. I would say we've got hundreds of facility requests here, and I'm not sure it would make sense to list them all out given the scope and sequence of what you've seen through the Habib and Associate report.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kelly? Go ahead, Paul.
I guess my first one with chronic absenteeism, you said that you were able to, you reduced 4% last year, but the areas that you didn't see that decrease in as much were special ed and low income. And I'm just wondering, are we tracking how many hours a week students are working, doing a job? Because if they're low income family, they're more likely to be working, and that impacts their ability to be here. Or you get over like that 10 or 12 hours a week mark, then it's maybe impacting their sleep and their ability to be here, but also their ability to do clubs and athletics and theaters and things like that.
Absolutely. We don't have that data, but that's good data to get.
Was that part of your empathy interviews too?
Yep.
With kids, you'll get that?
Yep.
I do. You somewhat answered the question that I was leading towards, because I think you went directly from talking about the writing and the mid-year writing assessments and going over the data with the students into SEL and wanting students to feel ownership of their classes. And I was about to ask, how do you square that circle? Because even as someone who loves writing, I don't know that I would sit and want to do that. So I was very glad to hear you follow up talking about the different types of assessments and all of those types of things. And I just wanted to say I'm glad that those conversations are there, because understanding the different polls that we have and that getting those MCAS numbers is up, so too is having the students invested in what they're doing. And I think that will bring the MCAS numbers up as much as anything. So
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go to the chronic absenteeism slide again, and I'm just going to ask, I know that there was a lot of work done over the summer with students that were just on the edge of passing classes and whatnot. Is that the final number, that we still had 131 classes failed, or were we able to make up any ground with having the program over the summer?
With the program over the summer, I'd have to get the specific number, but that number would have decreased, yes. Yeah, so we probably had, I'd probably reduce that by 30-odd classes if I was guessing.
Does anybody have anything else? Go ahead, Paul.
Yes, I'm sort of echoing what Paul said about the writing across the disciplines. I love that, because when you're writing, you're thinking. And those look-fors that you're talking about in the different assessments. But connecting that with the engagement is a challenge. But as they're talking, and you've got all of these goals as based on department grade level standards, but as those get developed and then the departments start talking to each other and trying to find those transferable skills that go, how can I use my argumentative writing not only in English class, but in science and math and history, and then you start to build and find these are common here in academics, so maybe they're common in all of these other areas that you're interested in as a career. So I'd say you've got the departmental grade level standards, but merging those departmental conversations might help create the connection for the students. But I love the writing goal.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick and Erica
I'd like to
again.
thank all of you for your time tonight.
I know you need to take a motion to approve those, but I just want to say thank you to the principals. I appreciate you. I know this isn't the stuff that drives the work that you do. I know this isn't what gives you energy, but this is the important, it's important that people hear the work that goes on. And several people mentioned, someone mentioned about not knowing what goes on in the buildings, and obviously the committee can't be in the buildings, but I appreciate the effort you put into these presentations and in sharing both the progress and the goals that you have for the year. So go home and go to bed. Thank you all.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the updated 2024-2025 school improvement plans as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains 2 donations tonight. Thank you to Honda North and the Weston family for donating $10,000 apiece to waive the fees for instrument rentals for elementary band students. The consent agenda also includes out-of-state and overnight trip planning permission approval for the middle school to go to the Washington, D.C. in the spring, and a final trip approval for Pine Grove School and Newbury Elementary 6th graders to go to the ecology school for a week in October 2024. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make the motion?
Any discussion? Yes, Paul?
Meetings have Susanna Copeland at the August 28th meeting. I don't think she was here.
Thank you.
Caitlin,
All those in favor? New business, would any members like to raise additional items for inclusion on a future agenda? The MASC-MASS Joint Conference is this time. No committee members have contacted me that they would like to attend the joint conference. Normally, we would appoint a delegate at this meeting, but unless anyone has changed their mind that they would like to go, we will skip that this year. The personnel report, since the school improvement plans can be lengthy and involved a lot of preparation work, the superintendent is going to forgo his full report for this month. The personnel report is attached, however. Can I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I have one question, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Ask the question first. On the bottom, the very last one where it talks about transfers and new assignments, Sarah Houghton's on there, and it says she's moving from a halftime CFCE coordinator / halftime community liaison to full-time CFCE. Is there still going to be a halftime community liaison, or is that role sort of getting eliminated?
So it's a stipended position and in the process of filling that now.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So
that
there's
is not going away.
Okay,
Yep.
that was my question. Thank you.
The next is the subcommittee reports, policy and advocacy, Paul Goldner.
We didn't have a meeting, so no update.
Finance, Paul Mayette.
We also have not met since our last meeting. We'll meet next Thursday.
Personnel and negotiations, Matthew.
We met on Thursday, September 12th, to discuss planning this year's negotiations, which include the Public Employee Committee Agreement, my favorite, the superintendent contract, and the custodial contract. We do not have another meeting at this time, but we're meeting with the full committee on October 9th.
Facility Subcommittee, Matthew?
We're continuing to work on our Plan B, other than partnering with the MSBA. After hearing from the MSBA in December, we will decide the most cost-effective solution for the district. We met on Friday, September 13th. It's on YouTube. It only has 18 views now. I think most of them are my mother. We met on Friday with Kevin from Habib and Associates. He provided us 2 high-level options for renovation to the middle school, high school campus, and the principals and the town officials and the subcommittee members were able to give feedback, and based on that feedback, he's coming back with a new plan on our October 1st meeting. And that's it.
Just like to say you don't speak often, but when you do, it's 110%.
It might be good that I don't speak often. And I feel like putting me as the chair of both subcommittees is to get me to speak. And I think you're going to want to put the genie back in the bottle at some point.
Does anybody have anything else? Tomorrow night is the DCC meeting here. So I want to thank you all. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
You can stay here all night. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you and have a nice evening.